Hi everyone, and welcome back to Shattered Silence, Stories of Recovery and Resilience. My name is Jori, and today I am here with Emily Cave Boit, a widow of a Bakersfield Condors hockey player.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be back in Baco.
Yeah, and you bringing that up, this is your first time back since Colby passed away. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure it's a lot of emotions.
Definitely. I feel like I was getting super excited to come, and then once I landed here, went to Cafe Smitten, obviously, this morning for breakfast. We walked by the rink, me and my parents, and we noticed that on the pictures, like in the windows, some kids are like wearing his like jersey that are like still hung up on the rink. So got a little teary-eyed here, but yeah, definitely bittersweet coming back.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can imagine. And his, I mean, I'm sure even just anytime you surround yourself with the death anniversary, it's already like hard on you. And so the fact that we had a listener actually reach out to us, say that you should come onto the podcast, and that's when we got connected. But all the timing of everything too is kind of crazy. I was told that one of his last games was in March, and here we are in March, and then approaching his 5-year anniversary, right? So I feel like, I mean, honestly, for me, I just feel like there's no coincidences in timing and stuff. I feel like timing is really everything. So I'm really glad that you're here.
Totally big believer in science.
Yeah. I mean, we can go back and forth on the science. I am such a big believer in science. But yeah, so I just kind of want to kind of hear your story, how you and Colby met. And, you know, there's always good things, and then it kind of, you know, there's always struggles in all relationships. But yeah, just kind of tell me about you and Colby.
Yeah, for sure. So Colby was playing, he was a professional hockey player. He was playing in Swift Current, Saskatchewan at the time, and he was still in high school. And I was living in Ontario. That's where I was from. So in Canada, it's quite a few provinces, or what you guys call them, states, over.
Yeah,
It was like a significant 4-hour flight away. And he somehow came across my Instagram, looked at one of his buddies in the locker room, showed them my Instagram. I was like, I'm going to marry this girl one day.
Oh my God.
I had no idea who he was, had never met him, and he continued to message me for like almost 2 years.
Oh my God.
I never responded. I didn't engage because I was like, he lives in Saskatchewan. Like, I'm in Ontario. Yeah, it was like, I think he actually just graduated high school because I was out of high school. And yeah, I just kind of kept brushing it off, and he was persistent. So eventually he signed with the Boston Bruins and was in the Bruins organization for 4.5 years. And he went to go down to Boston, and Providence is their AHL team, so equivalent to Bakersfield and Edmonton. And I decided, I was like, I got to give this guy a chance. Like, I gotta see what this is all about. So I booked a flight to go visit him for the weekend. And I'll never forget him picking me up at Boston Logan. And he had like the biggest smile on his face. And he kissed me right there and was like, I'm going to marry you one day.
Oh my God.
And
he just knew.
He knew. And over the weekend, I like kind of played hard to get. I was introduced to the crazy hockey life that I'm now so fortunate for. Went to all my first games, game day routines. And when I left that weekend, I flew back to my family and friends. I was like, he's right. Like, I'm going to marry him one day.
Oh my gosh.
And so then we did long distance for a few years. I was still in school. And then eventually I decided to kind of put my career on hold and move to the States. So I moved to the States. We spent a lot of time in Boston. Amazing organization. The Bruins are so incredible. He ended up being the first player to have his number retired after he passed away in Providence. The Bruins, are an amazing organization.
That's special,
And we... January 2019, we went on waivers. So waivers kind of works in the hockey world. They're trying to send you back down to the AHL, but he had been up in the NHL for too long. So they put you on waivers and you're given 24 hours for any other NHL team to grab and take you. So you don't know where you're moving. And we ended up getting sent to or picked up by the Edmonton Oilers. So we went to the Edmonton Oilers, were there for the remainder of the season, got married that summer. I felt like life was just starting, really.
Yeah.
You know, our dreams came true. Colby was playing in the NHL. We got married, trying to start a family. The summer went great. And then in the fall, we went back to Edmonton for the hockey season. And we kind of got sent up and down quite a bit from Edmonton to Bakersfield. So we got sent down to Bakersfield. And we had actually just bought a puppy. My parents were joking about it earlier. We had just bought a puppy that was 8 weeks old in Canada. And I couldn't fly it across the border. So I had to fly my dog to my parents and be like, I have to move to California. Can you watch my 8-week-old puppy?
Oh my God.
And then, like, I'll come back and pick up in 2 weeks and we can, like, fly him to California. So, yeah, we ended up, they're amazing and they totally helped with that situation. But, yeah, we came down to Bako, and we had, like, the team at the time was incredible. The coach was incredible. They just kind of opened us with welcome arms. The fans were incredible.
Yeah.
So we spent probably from, like, November to March, really, kind of back and forth between Bako and Edmonton. And March, so the beginning of March, obviously COVID started to unravel, and the NHL and AHL made a decision to end the season or put the season on hold because it wasn't safe anymore. So we had were going to fly back to Canada, and then I started getting symptoms of COVID. So we went to the team doctor, and they tested me, and we waited about like 18 days for me to like get my COVID results back. And it ended up being valley fever. I guess that's like common in Bako to get valley fever.
People don't know what valley fever is unless you're from here most of the time.
And I had like no idea when it came back and it wasn't COVID. So I mean, obviously we were so happy it wasn't COVID because we could like fly home. But March was just such a crucial in Bako time for me and Colby, because I'm so grateful, weirdly, for that valley fever, because it stopped us from flying back to Canada right away. So March 7th, he played his last game at the rink, got his last goal, which I totally took for granted. You know, game days had been such a part of my life. We had like our routines of picking out his suit. And then it was just, that was it. But because I was sick, we were quarantining together, and we had conversations or just spent a lot of quality time together before we flew back to Canada. And those ended up being some of Colby's last days alive. So when we had flown back to Canada and I was cleared, it was on a Thursday. It was April 2nd. And April 6th, Colby started not feeling great in the middle of the night. Around 11:30, he was like, I have a headache. And I was like, Colby, you're the epitome of health. Like, you have under 10% body fat. You're tested all the time. Like, you're an athlete. Like, this isn't normal. You never get headaches. And I looked at him and I was like, what if it's a brain tumor? And because I'm always I just had a weird feeling actually leading up to his death. Like, I remember he went on the road and I actually texted him. I was like, I have a sick feeling you're going to die. And this was like 3 weeks before and he was like, don't worry about it. It's just because of COVID. You're just stressed. Like, I'm totally fine. I'm taking off. He was taking off for a game. And I just had this bad feeling. So when he got the headache, I was like, what if it's a brain tumor? And he's like, Emily, it's not a brain tumor. Reassured me. It's totally okay. And we went to bed that night, and he got significantly sick through the night. And we were quarantining in my parents' basement. And in the morning, I woke up, and I rolled over, and I put my hand on his face, like under his ear, and I touched him, and he was completely hypothermic. Ghost color, very unwell. So a lot happened very quickly. You know, I ran up to my parents, but we're social distancing still because they were older, so I was worried about them. Paramedics came eventually, took him away to the local hospital. Local hospital did a scan. Obviously, I wasn't allowed to go in the ambulance, wasn't allowed to go anywhere, so stayed at home. long story short, they did a scan at the local hospital and saw fluid in his brain. So they automatically thought, it's a brain bleed. He's a hockey player. He must have got hit. It's a brain bleed. They're like, we're going to helicopter him to the trauma center in Toronto. We'll do emergency surgery there. So kind of within all of that, obviously, Colby being a public figure, you have to make calls, you have to make public statements. The NHL was involved, news were involved. But when I had got to the trauma center or the trauma hospital in Toronto, I was allowed up. Obviously my parents, and I went into this critical care room, and it was smaller. It was smaller than this room, and I was sitting there alone, 26. Colby was 25. And I remember the team coming in, like, the faces so vividly. I feel like when you go through grief, you remember certain faces, especially the people that tell you the bad news. Yes. You remember them.
Oh, yeah.
And they came in, the whole team, and they told me that Colby had a colloid cyst, which I was right, an extremely rare non-cancerous brain tumor that he was born with. Had gone undetected his whole life till he was 25. Some people live with it. Some people are... The neurosurgeon essentially told me, like, he was destined to die with this. So his brain, where the colloid cyst was, it had just shifted enough that it had actually filled his brain with spinal fluid. So that was the fluid in the brain, not the bleed. And although that they successfully removed the colloid cyst, the pressure in his brain was so great. They didn't think he was going to make it. So he was in a coma or medically induced a coma for the next 4 days. I was not allowed to be with him, which I could go on about a whole part of it. Before I went home, they wheeled me in a wheelchair to go, like, see him behind the glass, and they gave me a walkie-talkie and him a walkie-talkie, and I could kind of talk to him. And then I went home, and then after that, it was FaceTime calls. So, I said bye to him on FaceTime. And then he ended up passing away Saturday. So he had emergency brain surgery on Tuesday, passed away Saturday, early morning around just after 3. Got the call, was allowed to go back to the hospital and see his body. So went through that process. But again, it was all COVID. So it was just, there's paparazzi outside my parents' house, media. There was people trying to, like, get the next story that he passed away, flowers at the house, all those types of things. But at the same time, when someone passes away, normally all your friends come over. You kind of start planning a funeral right away. It's a very delayed grief process. I mean, look at me here now, 5 years later. It's my first time back in Baco. So, he ended up passing away. And then from there, I always say, I never imagined I would become Colby's widow less than 9 months after our dreams came true of getting married. But if I could, like, change one thing, I'd, like, only run faster down the aisle to him. And then, my young widow journey started on April 7th, 2020. And as you know, it's quite a journey.
My gosh.
Which I'm sure we can get a lot into. But, never imagined. When you think of a widow, you think of, like, older people.
Right.
I never imagined being a young widow.
Right.
So, that's kind of a long but short kind of story of everything that happened.
I mean, I can only imagine how tough that was during COVID, though, like, not being able to just, like, be there. And you just want to be like, just let me be by his side, like, that is so incredibly hard. And, like, but you saying 9 months after your wedding, right? And Brooks was 9 months old when his dad passed away. So it's like just time frame where I was the same way, like, our life is just starting, it's just starting, and then your world just comes crashing down. And then all the aftermath is the craziest, because, like you said, you start planning a funeral, and you're like, I mean, I had support there at my house, but, like, for you, I don't, like, how was that?
My best friend actually said it from the Bruins. She said, unless you were witness me during that time, I don't think you'll ever fully be able to understand it. Because you know, our best friends, our family, like, they couldn't even hug me. I had people driving hours to just stand in my driveway as I would, like, stand on the porch, because you had a social distance. One of our great cup, by the way. One of our Bakersfield Condors teammates at the time came over and stood, the day he died, stood in the driveway, and I was on the porch, and he was just keeled over in the driveway crying, and I was keeled over on the patio, and, like, we couldn't hug.
Yeah.
And it went like that for, I mean, we couldn't have Colby's funeral until a year later.
Oh my gosh.
We couldn't have, and even then when we had his funeral, it was only allowed 20 people still.
Oh my gosh.
So it was televised, that Edmonton Oilers streamed it. We did it at the Oilers rink up in Edmonton, but it was only 20 people allowed in the rink. We had to walk onto the stage. When I said the eulogy, I had to walk onto the stage. You had to wash your hands a certain way on camera. You had to take off your mask a certain way on camera. Then I said the eulogy. Then I had to re-wash my hands, then put my mask on, and then walk off stage.
That is so crazy.
So there was a lot of, you look back and you're kind of like, did that really happen? But
Yeah.
I think so many people still, the best they could, showed their love and support. The Barrie, where we were at my parents' house, the whole city ran out of flowers. So every single NHL team, AHL team, like, I think at one point in time we had like 90 bouquets around the house.
Yeah,
so
just
people
so much love and support.
showed, but I definitely think, talking to other COVID deaths, you feel a little bit robbed.
Yeah.
And, like, a little bit, I think it's, like, very important in widowhood to just be, like, honest about emotions, and a little bit jealous, to be honest. Like, anger and jealous that other people had, like, a different route of grieving, or more normal route of, like, the funeral and all that.
Right.
However, in saying that, I was talking to my therapist about it. It's also a blessing. I don't love using that word in some ways, but a year later, I can't imagine for you and other widows to have to plan the funeral right away, speak at the funeral when you're still in shock. Where me, I wasn't as, I had more processed it. So not that there is ever pros and cons to widowhood. It's kind of like the sudden versus terminal.
Right.
But there's definitely seen a little bit of light in different situations, for sure.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to ask too. Like, it's like, I mean, you're in shock. You really don't know even what's going on. You don't know what you need, what you want. You just are confused. You want more answers, you know? And it's like, does that, like, prolong, like, your grief and, like, just moving forward just because you still have this funeral that you still haven't been able to do yet? And, like, you know, because I think, even for my situation, you know, yeah, we did plan everything right away, and it was like a big deal, and it was like very confusing, but at the same time, it's like now the funeral is done, and like we can kind of take a deep breath, you know what I mean? Even though it's still a lot, but it's like, I don't know, I just think of you having to do it so much later, does it, like, how did it affect your grieving process?
I think it was extremely delayed.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot that has delayed my grief that I still see the ripple effects to this day. The year mark later, having the funeral, a lot of games in his honor. The Condors did a game in his honor 3 years ago. Actually, ironically, today.
Oh my
3 years
gosh.
ago today, it was the Colby Cave night, and they gave all the kids Colby Cave jerseys.
Oh my gosh.
I wasn't able to come to that. So many different things. So I think that's kind of where, like, the jealousy and anger kind of come in a little bit. Where I think also with young widowhood, there's a lot of judgment. So I think when people 2 years later, and I was still having first of, you know, going to Boston and doing the games in Boston and seeing our teammates there for the first time because the border opened up, people were like, how is she still grieving 2 years later? Where it's like, this is the first time.
Yeah.
And it's just so delayed. Right. So I think a lot of people actually had less patience with me in those moments. Obviously those people, like, aren't your people, and, like, they're like the trolls or like the judgmental
they won't understand.
People. But yeah, definitely delayed it.
Right. And I mean, I feel like that's, like, you know, funeral, all that stuff, and then you kind of get to think about it, and that is kind of like your closure. So yeah, it does kind of prolong like your closure and moving on. So I just on Monday cleaned Kyle's closet out. And so that's what I was going to ask. Like, you're back here for the first time, and I know you guys were just kind of like back and forth to Bakersfield. But how did you did you have to clear his things out? Like, what, like...
Yeah, so I think with, again, the crazy kind of hockey life, you're kind of always on the move. And we didn't have our own house because we were constantly renting and moving teams. So what I had of Colby's was really kind of in the, like, 19 suitcases we lived out of that, like, traveled us during the season. So I had that stuff, and actually another widow gave me the advice, and it sounds like you did the same, to not make any decisions right away.
Right, yeah.
And to wait, because, and that's what I did. I waited to, like, I pack thing. I didn't give anything right away because I needed time to process and be like, what do I really need to keep? What do I want to, give back to his family or give to some friends or give to his billet family? So I highly recommend that. But there was definitely other things that I made decisions on, obviously, right away.
Yeah.
But again, I think with COVID and things being delayed and just taking that other widow's recommendation, I highly recommend to not make any decisions. Because even a year later, I feel like I gave some things away, and I literally thought I gave it back to one of his family friends, and I thought about it the other day, and I was like, oh, I kind of wish I kept that one.
Yeah.
But obviously, I think it's so special, and I'm sure for you with Brooks, you want him to have his clothes.
Right, yeah. It's hard to, and I also don't want to be selfish and, keep everything to myself. I'm he's got his brothers and all of his nieces and nephews and his parents and everyone else that I'm sure wants stuff. And I don't want to selfishly keep things for me. Of course, there's a few things for me that I want, but it's mostly, for my son. I want him to be able to have his dad's things. And so it is kind of a hard decision, okay, I can't be selfish and keep everything, but... I want to keep a lot of it for Brooks.
What I did, which is so special, is me and Colby had this tradition where I'd pick out his game day suits. And so I took his wedding suit, his rehearsal dinner for our wedding, obviously, suit, his 2 favorite game day suits, and I got them made into a quilt.
Oh, nice.
Which is really nice. And then I have them engravement from his suit on the quilt and that. So I think that was a cool way, because I can't wear his suits.
Yeah.
But it's a cool way that I can still have them.
Right.
And use the quilt or the blanket.
I want to do that for Brooks, but Kyle had the stupidest t-shirts that said the stupidest things. So dumb. I can't even say some of them right now, but I'm I have to make a quilt of all of his dumb shirts, because that's kind of what he was known for. He'd collect just dumb shirts.
I love it. What would be your favorite one?
Well, I just found one that I bought him for his first and only Father's Day. So it's not a dad bod, it's a father figure. So that one was pretty fun.
That should be right in the middle.
Right? Yeah. He's okay, this is pretty cool. And I found it just on Monday when I was cleaning out the closet, and it made me laugh and it made me cry, oh my gosh, this is so him, but just bringing back all the memories, But anyways, so you didn't have a whole lot of things that you had to necessarily go through and bring back home or anything, but is there anything that you guys, I say you guys because your parents are here with you, is there anything you guys are gonna do to kind of look back at your time here?
We went to Cafe Smitten this morning. Obviously we're gonna go to the rink later, and the game, the Condors have his glove in the locker room, so the boys can fist pump it going out the tunnel, and obviously I haven't seen that yet.
That's really cool.
So that's very special. There's a plaque in the concourse area, so I'm gonna do that, and then I'm actually gonna take my parents back to where we lived, because my parents didn't get to see it.
Okay.
So kind of take them to that area of the city. It's just outside of Baco. So kind of show them, you know, this is the grocery store I went to. Like every time I was like FaceTiming them back in Canada, being like, this is where I was, or like when I was like walking the dog, or I think it's important to go back there. Like we were talking earlier this morning, like we had a rental apartment and like we had rental furniture, and when Colby passed away, like the furniture was still in the apartment, and it was like the Condors that had it like figure out how to get it all back to the rental unit, because like we couldn't, everything was so sudden when we left. And then obviously he passed away. We were there for those like quarantine days, and then we got out.
Seems like kind of a quick transition when you leave too. So having to go through COVID and everything, how did it feel to not be able to like actually say goodbye to him?
I feel like that's the one thing that haunts me still to this day. Like the fact he died alone, I just don't think I'll ever be able to stomach. There was ways, like the nurse that was there, Colby had a thing with me that was squeezing my hand 3 times to like say I love you. He did it before we went to sleep every night in the car, and as he was dying, the nurse was like squeezing his hand 3 times because I told her that. But it's interesting because when we were in Baco, when I had valley fever, and we thought I had COVID, so we were quarantined during those 18 days, they were such a blessing, because even this story alone, Colby was like, let's binge watch a TV show, and we decided to watch Grey's Anatomy. And we started it from the beginning, and it was season 2, an episode, and there is a fiance, and she was into an accident, and there's a train pull through her and the other patient, and they have to pull her off the pole to save the other patient. She's probably not going to make it. And I mean, we're newlyweds. Like Colby had just turned 25, I was 26, very young, just got married, and we're watching this, and Dr. McDreamy asked her, hey, what do you want me to say to your fiance when he comes? Because it wasn't going to be good. And she said, if love was enough, I'd still be there with you. And I know that for Colb, and I'm sure you know that too. Like, if they could have done anything, they would have still be here with us. And I looked at Colby and I said, what would you say to me? And earlier on, when we were watching Grey's Anatomy, I'm like, oh, do you want to be cremated? Do you want your organs donated? Like, we're just having these weird questions because we were watching this medical show that not normally people would have. So when I asked him that, he went really quiet. And then a few minutes later, he looked at me, and I, like, we'll never forget it. He put my hair behind my ear, and he was like, I would tell you, like, how much I love you, and I'm proud of you, and nothing's going to happen to me. And he was like, we're going to have a daughter named Charlie, because that's the name we wanted to use. And, like, talking about Chester, our dog, and he told me his goodbye, like, what he would say to me, and we kind of just moved on with the day, and that was that. And then 2 weeks later, he was gone, and he didn't get to say goodbye to me. So you look back in ways of things happen, whether you call it fate, whether you call it like that. I knew what he would say, even though he couldn't say it to me on those days, because when he woke up that morning, he was not what I witnessed and tried to do to save him. I wouldn't wish upon anyone. So yeah, moments like that, you look back and it's like, it's so hard to say everything happens for a reason, and I hate that saying, but like, it's kind of how everything plays out. There's so many moments, and you know, I think back on even us just flying out on the Thursday and getting out on the Thursday, and then him getting sick on the Monday. Colby's last thing he did for me was get me back on Canadian soil, because I could not have imagined we didn't get home in time, and this happened 4 days later in Baco, and both being Canadian and all our families were not allowed to cross the border, and I was here alone dealing with it. Like, those moments you look back on and you're like, thank God, because I don't know what I would have done. Like it.
Yeah. Well, you know, that just reminds me so much of me talking with my therapist, and this was not even my current therapist. I saw someone just right away after Kyle passed. I just knew like I needed some sort of counseling or just to see someone. And this woman I was speaking with, she had lost her daughter to a car wreck. She was in high school. And it's just, we were talking about these moments right before, how sometimes you just have this almost like, it's not like you want to say like, things happen for a reason, or this was like fate or whatever, but it's just like, I think of it, because this is how she told me, is that you think of it as like God's like little signs for you to like hold on to, because obviously he knows what's going to happen. And so it's like for her, like I think it was only the week before her daughter had passed, she wrote like a note, because she was going to like a camp, like a church camp or something. And she wrote a little note and said like, "Smile, Mom, like I love you," or something, because she wasn't going to be there on her birthday because she was going to be at camp. And so she wrote like this note, like, "Happy birthday, Mom, I love you, keep a smile on," or something like that. And she had taped it to like her bathroom mirror. And like the next week she had passed in a car wreck. And so she's like, I think about that all the time. Like she was able to write me something before she couldn't any longer. And that just makes me think of your situation. And I've had the same thing even with Kyle, like just thinking of like, which mine's not as good of like a happy thing necessarily, but it's just almost like foreshadowing kind of, you know, it's like
There are so many foreshadowing.
oh
I
yeah,
feel like.
yeah. And I like would talk to him too, because Kyle passed from an overdose. He wasn't I didn't think he was actively dealing with his addiction. And we would always watch Breaking Bad, and then it was like this moment where she like had overdosed, and I just remember like I would cry every time. And I'm like, that is so sad, because all I would think is like him overdosing. And so I told him, like, I don't know if it was a month or a couple months before he passed, I said, like, I would be devastated. Like, don't ever, like, do that to me. I never want to find you like that. And that is exactly what happened. But, like, you also, like, talk about, like you guys talking about what he wanted as far, like, do you want to be cremated? Do you want to be buried? It's like, Kyle just talked about that stuff. I don't know if it was military, but, like, you know, he just talked about that stuff. Like, oh, yeah, I'll be buried out here at the National Cemetery and blah, blah, blah. And so, I mean, thankfully he did tell me that kind of stuff, because I did know exactly what he wanted, you know? And it's so weird that life can, like, work that way, you know? I just think it's crazy.
I couldn't agree more on the foreshadowing and signs and everything leading up and looking back. Yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, I can go on, like, signs and like, I never, like, really looked at, like, numbers, really, but now I'm, like, a big numbers person. I see these angel numbers all the time, and, like, my signs from him, like, right before the funeral, like, just things that I feel like is signs from him, whether it's signs from him, signs from God, whatever. It's just signs to help me get through, you know?
It's interesting. Yesterday leading up, I, like, was getting ready to like travel, and there was a song in particular that I posted when Colby was in a coma, and my phone was just like constantly on shuffle all in the car, and I was driving around to different things, and every single time I was in the car yesterday before the airport, the song came on, but like different versions. Like it was like instrumental, live, studio version, guitar, acoustic, like this Christian worship song came on. And then Jake Kulovich, who played here in Bakersfield when after Colby died, Colby was kind of like known in the locker room for like the music guy and like playing like bump up songs. And I remember I asked Jake, and I was like, what song did he play? What was like the go-to song? And there's all these like fun photos of Colby in the locker room, and he told me the song, and I joke you not, in the Uber going to the airport, that song is playing. In the restaurant, that song was playing.
Oh my God.
And then in the shuttle, like to the it played like 3 times, like from like on my way to the airport now. And I just like, so when I landed in Baco, I'm like thinking of him in the locker room, like playing this song, like getting the boys pumped up and excited. But whether it's a song or a number or double rainbows or anything, another widow, I don't know if you did this, but one of the best advices another young widow gave to me, and I still have the book, is from the moment he died, I wrote down every single sign, big or small, and I dated it. And I still have it in this book 5 years later to be able to look back and be like, this happened. Colby showed up here. This is where I felt him. This is where... And I feel like unless you've, like, lost someone, people think you're, like, crazy about signs.
I know, right? But
where
no,
I'm
it's
like,
real.
I don't want to say you just wait, because, like, you don't want them to, like, go through something and then learn signs. But I'm like, they're a thing.
That on anyone,
like,
but yeah.
Yeah, signs keep you going.
Like, yeah, it really is just your little reminder that you need sometimes, especially when you're having your tough days. I feel like that's when it shows up the most. And, like, I mean... I'm only going to share one more sign because we could probably go back and forth forever.
Signs are so good.
But, yeah, like the day of Kyle's funeral, because I still stayed in the house. I'm actually still in the house that he passed away in. And so my mom was staying with me. She stayed with me the night before the funeral. She's like, okay, I got to go get ready. Are you good to get ready? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. So I was getting ready at my house. And so then I did get in my car, and the church is right by my house. So I was like, okay, I got a 2-minute drive. You know, I'm fine to drive by myself. I can do it without crying. But I get in the car, and same thing. My phone was just on shuffle, but Kyle always loved to listen to me sing the Dixie Chicks because I've always loved them since, like, growing up.
I love it.
And so it was Without You by the Dixie Chicks. Like, one of the saddest ones, too, that I don't ever, like, sing, you know, and I never even listened to, honestly. But it was just, like, Without You, and then this number 53 that I had kept, like, singing ever since he passed, and it was, like, whatever time it was, 9:53 or something. I was like, okay, the 53 is there, and then it's Dixie Chicks, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're with me on the way to the funeral, and it's just, like, you know, something I needed, even though it made me so emotional, but it's like, you know, I really think I need to start writing my signs down, though.
Definitely write them. I feel like signs, and I just feel like, I don't know about you, but sometimes I can just, like, I almost feel like he's, like, you feel this, like, presence, and you're like, okay, he is totally here.
Right.
Which is, like, so bittersweet and special.
I know, it's a
like,
weird
so sad
thing.
at the same time.
We have a message from our sponsors, Aspire Counseling Services. We just want to remind everyone that seeking treatment should never be stigmatized. Aspire specializes in providing support and treatment for both teens and adults with mental health and substance use disorders, recognizing that these conditions often do coexist. They are an amazing resource, and you can get started by texting or calling the number 888-585-7373 to enroll at any time.
So I knew that, like, right after, which personally, right after Kyle passed, I knew I needed to talk to somebody, but it was also because I did have, like, trauma as a child too. Talk to a counselor, and I remember even at 10 years old that I needed to talk to someone. So did you see someone, a counselor, therapist, whatever, after he
was
passed?
very fortunate right away to be hooked up with the NHL. Kind of has a therapist that works with they have 3, and I was very fortunate to be hooked up with her right away. So I started talking to her like 2 days after he passed away. And I know a lot of people take a long time, or there's a long wait list, so I can't imagine. Again, I was very grateful to be given a therapist right away, and a therapist that I clicked with very well. Yeah. Because it can be very hard to find a therapist and counselor, so I was very fortunate, and she is like the MVP the past 5 years. Like, I love her.
And you still see her.
Yeah, so we've definitely, like, over the time has started. In the beginning, it was, like, every single day. And, like, she gave me her personal number to, like, text her. And, like,
that's
it
awesome.
was, I think it was really, it was good, again, I think, with the uniqueness of Colby and the public eye. She's worked with people before, like, obviously players and all that, so the confidentiality, that was, like, a big thing for me, because I had no privacy when I stepped out my house. So I needed someone that got the lifestyle, that I could really trust, and she was incredible and still is incredible. And I remember when I went back to Toronto for the first time, I went and, like, brought her a coffee, and then I, like, wrote a book, and I talk about her in the book, and yeah, very firm believer in counseling and how important that is. And I think it's hard because me and you both kind of knew we needed it. Like, we had feeling, that gut feeling, but I think it can be difficult for a majority of people. I think we're actually more the minority to want to like seek help. So I think it's like really important to find a good match, and definitely get the help you need.
Yeah, especially having a good match, you know, because it is hard to find someone that you connect with, and a random person that you have to open up your whole life to. I know it's hard for people, but I've always been the opposite. I'm like, let me spill it all so you don't have to judge me. You know? I'm like, I'm just going to tell you everything. Probably stuff you don't even want to know.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like one of those like memes where it's like the oversharer. That's me. I'm like, same. I'm just going to say how it is because must be hear from the one closest to it.
I mean, yeah. And plus that's how you get like good feedback, you know, because you really need to tell like all the ins and outs of your life, honestly, to get true feedback and what's going to truly help you. But moving forward, let's go into moving forward, because that's just a really tough thing in general as a widow, and just as feeling like you are going to be judged no matter what on the outside of you're moving on, and everyone seems to think they know what your timeline should look like. For me personally, it took me like about 8 months to go on my first date, and then I feel like people are just like, dang, that's kind of early, but you don't know until you know. And then I was a mess after that, and that was my icebreaker, and then I was a mess after that, but yeah, you have been remarried now. So go into that a little bit. How was it dating at first? And
so I feel, there's a lot of firsts. I don't even know where to begin on that. Even down to like when to take off your rings, when to date again.
Yes.
But I think for me, again, going back to the COVID delayed, I was very... Like, I remember so many people were like, she needs to move on. And I was like, I haven't even had a funeral for my husband yet.
Yeah.
Like, let me at least, like, how can I get out there and date again when I haven't even had a funeral?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
give me some slack.
Yeah.
So I remember after the 1 year mark, that's when he had his funeral. A lot of people were kind of people say, I'm going to swear, not swear, dumb, if that's a bad swear word, things when people die, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I remember like, you're going to move on right away, you're going to, etc. And I remember after the 1 year mark, kind of like being like, what now? And the hockey season had ended, and I was moved back to Edmonton. I was living in Edmonton at the time, and I went over to Connor McDavid's house. He's the captain in Edmonton. And a few of us girls were there and teammates, and Connor looked at me and he was like, you know, we miss Caver every single day. And his wife now, Lauren, had a family member that was a young widow at the same time. And so we were kind of talking about that, and he was like, I would have never met Lauren had they not gone out there and dated again and remarried. And I think for me, in Canada, just being kind of under a microscope, I was also really worried to go date again and then someone like see me on a date, but I'm doing all these things in Colby's honor. Like, I was very worried. I was very careful who I brought into the hockey life. So Connor, basically, there was definitely some tequila shots involved, and it was like 3 a.m., but kind of sat me down and was like, you need to date again. And it was Ty Ennis, Ryan, Darnell, and Connor, I guess. And so they told me about this app called, I'm going to butcher it. I don't even know how to say it. Raya. That one.
I think.
Yes, that one. And basically the dating app, you can't screenshot or you're kicked out.
Oh, okay.
So it's like, it's for like privacy reasons.
Right.
And for me, that was a big thing, because all I wanted, being such under a microscope of anything I was doing or saying at the time, not to be screenshot. Colby's Cave widow is dating again. Yeah. In like wherever it was.
Right.
Because anything I did would somehow end up in the news at that time. So they downloaded, one of the teammates had helped me download it and referred me to get me on it. I did not touch this app. So this is May. So it's now like 13 months after. I did not touch the app. And then come December, so like a year and a half later, I had a friend over, we were having pizza, and we are kind of fooling around on this app. She was more playing on it. And Colin had messaged me being like, hey, and I hadn't responded because I was like, I'm not.
What am I even doing?
What am I doing here? And they're like, the app is like from all over the world, so it's not even like just in like Edmonton. And then he messaged me again and was like, are you gonna respond or do I have to watch Selling Sunsets alone? And I was like,
that's funny.
So then my like friend responded, and then we like kind of started talking back and forth. Then we had a FaceTime. It was like a 5-hour FaceTime call.
Oh my gosh.
And he was in Seattle at the time working there, and one of two of our very best friends that we played with, the Bruins, were playing on the Seattle Kraken. And I had already planned to go visit them. And he was in Seattle, so I kind of bumped up my trip. And I flew there, went out to dinner with him, and I think it just like kind of like everything happened so fast from there. I went out to dinner with him, met his family at this like goodbye barbecue for his cousin or his siblings a few days later, and they're like, hey, come back, we're doing a sibling weekend up at their cabin, we'd love to have you. And I was like, okay. So I was like, we'll give this a try. So I flew back, got my dog because my parents were going away because my parents were watching him, then flew back to Seattle.
Oh my gosh.
Week later, went up to the ski cabin, and then when I went to fly home, because you were still kind of testing for COVID at that time, because it was beginning of 2022, I guess. I tested positive for COVID. And Colin did too. So then I had to quarantine basically on our second date, like barely knowing this guy, for like 2 weeks with my dog in his room in like this like kind of college frat boy house. I mean, they're not in college frat boy, but it was like two of his like Dartmouth football. And one of the girlfriends of the players was like, I don't know how you did it. Like, I don't, like, it was just, and I remember there were so many calls to the therapist. Like, I was like, this is so triggering. This is like, I
crazy.
Barely know him, and how I'm stuck. Like, you want to find out your make or break, you quarantine with someone
right away
in COVID that has like COVID trauma / is a widow. Like, it was all happening really fast. So then he ended up, after the 2 weeks, I'm like, well, I guess you got to meet my parents. So then he flew back to Canada. And met some of like Colby's teammates there, some people, but we hid I don't know about you, but we hid, I think, again, we hid our relationship for quite a few months before I went public with it. Well, I guess 3 or 4 months. Because I think I was trying to protect Colin a little bit, and then just like protect myself. And then obviously, posted that we were dating. Honestly, 99.9% we're so happy about it, but I feel like it's always that 0.01% that like you like get so upset about. And then he kind of like been on a journey. He went to Wharton for his MBA, kind of flying back and forth, got engaged. Just recently got remarried in June, which I think brought a lot of emotions, I think, for people on my side, obviously. And kind of, going through the seconds of a bridal shower, but also trying to be like present because it's Colin's first and be mindful of that. But at the same time, there's a lot of flashbacks. It was pretty, and still to this day is pretty hard to navigate, I'm going to be honest. So I got married, currently living just outside of San Francisco, and slowly kind of going through. A few weeks ago, it was really hard. It was the day, and actually one of my friends made sure I was on a girls' trip that weekend, but it was the day that marked I'd officially been married to Colin longer than Colby. Like, I'd officially been married like the 252, or I forget how many days exactly. And that was a weird dynamic shift for me. Like, that one I kind of struggled with you're excited, but then there's the survivor's guilt. And all the emotions that come with that. So, I definitely say young widowhood is hard. I think I would say the transition that I saw the most, like, either or, like, or people, I'm getting that way, was when we got engaged. I feel like dating, I could, like, still openly talk about Colby, and, like, it was still kind of fun and all that, but I think the moment we got engaged, and people are like, okay, so she has to be done with Colby, and it can only be all Colin.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't work for me.
Yeah, no. People just don't, like, they just won't know until they know.
Exactly.
You know? And again, we don't wish that on anybody.
No, don't wish it on anyone.
Yeah.
But you can't, I always say you can't fault people for not going through trauma.
Right.
However, it can be very frustrating.
Yes.
So yeah, it's definitely been a journey. Trying to navigate it all, you know, my family and friends at the wedding too. I think it's so bittersweet for them as well.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, are you still close with Colby's family at all?
Unfortunately, not so much Colby's immediate family. There are still some family members that I'm close with. Colby moved out to his billet family when he was like 15 and 16.
Okay.
And he moved in with them to like go play hockey, etc. So was an extremely close with his billet family. I always say he's a lot like his billet dad. He reminds me a lot of his billet dad and billet mom. So they were able to come. So that was really nice. His billet.
I'm sorry, I don't know what that is.
Okay, so yeah, when you play hockey, when you move out like kind of like 14, 15 to go play somewhere else.
Okay.
So Colby moved out when he was 14 or 15 to go play hockey somewhere else.
Okay.
And he moved in with the billet family.
Okay.
And then lived with them moving forward.
Okay.
So I feel like they got him. I always say billet families don't get enough credit because they get young boys at their most crucial years, right? Like 14, 15 to like 20. You're building who they are as a man.
Oh, yeah.
And I thank his billet parents all the time because I was like, you made him the man he was.
Yeah.
So yeah, his billet mom was there, his billet brother, his two little billet sisters and billet dad weren't able to come. But special having there, like his billet mom texted me right before this and was like, love you with a heart. His billet mom, the day Colby died, I called him in the middle or after he passed away, and she made me a promise, and she said, I'm going to text you every single day after he died until, like, I know you're okay. Like, I'm going to, and without fail, she always is texting me, always awesome. Checking in. So, yeah, unfortunately, not as close with his immediate family. I hope and I pray one day that will change. That would be, like, my biggest hope. Something I would definitely love in the future, but as of right now, definitely really lean on our hockey family and the billet family. His teammates, they're kind of your family. So I had some of the Bakersfield teammates there at the wedding. Awesome. I had the coaches, and it was, I'm really blessed with our hockey family for sure. Yeah, and that's awesome that, I'm sorry, your husband now. Colin. Mm-hmm. Colin and Colby, sorry. Oh my God, the C-O-L. They're both C-O-L, and then I-N or B-Y. Girl, there was so many times I was like, The pastor that married us was like one of Colby's best friends, and he had like nightmares leading up to it. I was like, I'm going to say the wrong name. Oh my gosh. Especially at the wedding. Oh my gosh. We're like, do not mess up. So bad. Do not mess up. I know. Yeah. I feel like it's just got to be a hard situation. I mean, we know it's a hard situation because you still want to honor Colby, but you also want to be present for Colin. I'm only in like a 4-month relationship, so we're still in the very beginning, but I have felt the same way, just in that I want to talk about Kyle. I mean, I have a son with Kyle, you know, I'm always going to talk about him and always going to like talk about him to Brooks, and so I think it like also takes a fairly confident person to be able to like hear stories about essentially your ex, you know? It's, exactly. I mean, it is your ex. I mean, you guys didn't break up, but it's your last relationship. And regardless of the circumstances, it's got to be a little bit uncomfortable because I couldn't imagine the roles being reversed and how I would be. I don't know. You know, it would be really hard. I mean, knowing what we know now, we'd probably be a little bit more understanding. But if we hadn't gone through what we went through, how do you manage that? You know, that's hard. I feel like, we have tried to learn how to navigate it the best. I think, I mean, I try and balance both. And this is where I actually lean on other widows that are like further out in their journey, to be like, how do you navigate these moments? you know, I do it in little ways. Like, obviously, Colin knew that I was flying here. So, like, before I left my place, I, like, wrote him, like, a thank you letter and, like, got him a little gift. Like, I try and be like, I know it must be hard for him there, knowing that I'm here. Like,
Right.
I try and do things like that. You know, Colin is pretty more of a private guy, where obviously Colby was very public. So I think actually that's a big navigation for us, is that I'm very open and I'm going to say what is on my mind. Like, he didn't marry a church mouse. Like, I am very outspoken. So I think that can be a little hard at times for anyone, right? Different personalities. So he's definitely more private. And I think that's hard for him being so public, as you are sharing on your social media as well.
Right.
Is when I'm sharing about Colby and my time with Colby, that's not taking away from Colin.
Right.
One, Colin just asked to be more private. Like, he doesn't love social media. He doesn't love me posting about him much. But I think it's the people that, like, put those thoughts in your head, or the people that, like, kind of create the dive, don't make it that much better. Like, you're actually making the problem worse. But, like, I'm talking openly about Colby because I can, and Colin likes to be a little bit more private, so trying to navigate that. But that doesn't mean, I don't love Colin as much as I love Colby.
Right.
So it kind of is, and maybe it would be a little bit different, or on a different, more unique level if we weren't so vocal on socials. I don't know. But I do really lean on widows further on in their journey, because, as you said, I can't imagine roles reversed being in that position, because it wasn't a breakup.
Right.
You obviously still love Kyle, and I love Colby, and it's a dating a widow is not for the weak, and it's not. You got to really know what you're getting into, and it's a lifelong. Like, half of our heart is always broken or belongs to someone else. So I think it's accepting that and realizing that as you, like, jump in. And like, obviously there's time shifts and certain times and certain moments, obviously on birthdays and death anniversaries are a little bit more heavy, but I'm still winging it. I'm still trying to figure out how to do it. I think the rest of my life, we're both going to be like, we're winging it.
Yeah, I know, right?
Hope we're making you proud.
I know. Yeah, and I do that all the time. I'm like, it's so weird. It's so weird. People are going to think it's crazy. You know, it's like, I will talk to Kyle and just be like, Kyle, oh my gosh, like, like, Brooks is just getting so big and he's so smart, and I hope that you love Jared. Like, you know, I hope that you, like, can see, like, how good he is to us, and just, like, talk to him about my relationship, which sounds so crazy and so weird. But I just talked with my therapist just recently, and she was just like, you know, it's like, I think it is important, though, that you have, like, that big difference between the two people, because it's like, this goofy, crazy, silly, like, outgoing Kyle, that is reserved for Kyle. Like, you're not with this goofy, crazy, outgoing, like, loud, center of attention person at this point, because that is Kyle. That's you have that love for Kyle, but now you're in a much different relationship, and he's such a different person, but you don't want to have these two people competing. Almost, you know, it's like that's
a great way to put it.
Yeah, and I feel like that, like, having, like, heard that perspective, it's like, I feel like that's such a great perspective, because it's like, you love two completely different people. One is here on earth, one is in heaven. You know, but you can still, like, have that love for Colby, too. Yeah, you know? And it's weird, and people, again, we're going to say this a million times, you don't get it until you get it. It's kind of like a
triangle.
It's
kind of like you have, like, one in heaven, like you say, and then one here on earth.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I'm starting to think about a lot more, because as I have, you know, Jared in my life, mine and Brooks's life, it's like talking about time, it's like he's already been in Brooks's life like half of the time that Kyle was in his life. And so, like, that, the longer we're together, we just approach this time that there's going to be a time where he's around longer than Kyle was around. That's really hard and really, like, sad to think about, you know, but it's like, timing is really, it's
blessing
just
and a curse.
Yes, exactly. And, like, even, like, talking about the ring that you talked about, you know, like, I took my ring off because I was like, I've been wearing it longer with him gone than I have with him alive. So I think it's time, it's like, that's just kind of how I've thought of things. But thinking about, okay, you love this man in heaven, you love this man here. I am like Brooks, and I'm getting to this point where what am I going to say to him? Like, he's kind of been a little bit confused recently, like maybe kind of saying like dad to Jared, and I'm like, okay, did he just say that, and he's like, I think he did. And we're not correcting him, we're not saying anything, but I think there's going to be a point where I'm like, okay, yeah, like your dad, you have two dads, like your dad's in heaven and then you have your dad here. And so just a weird transition point, and it's just going to be weird. But I'll just take it as it comes, I guess. But
from what I see, you're doing an amazing job.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We all try, right? Yeah. We're trying. We're doing the best we can.
We're all just winging it.
Yep, exactly. Just winging it. That's going to be the name of the episode. So moving forward, what is life like now?
Yeah, so I feel like when Colby was in brain surgery, I made a vow to him that I would like continue to share our story. Colby's nickname for me was his little world changer. He always called me that. He always said little world changer, and I was like, I vow to like, that is a lot to fill, like big shoes to fill, but like do everything I can to continue to share his story. So obviously when he passed away, the Bruins and the Oilers both started memorial funds in his honor. So I continue to still run both of those. The Bruins, we actually have the Colby Cave Psychiatric Memorial Fund. So at Hasbro Children's Hospital on the mental health unit, they learn how to play an instrument during their time. They have yoga classes. The kids that come from, some of those kids come from juvie and they have no clothes. So we make sure that they have like sweatpants or pajamas.
That's really awesome.
And we do a lot there. And then with the Oilers, it's 2 parts. So we have the Colby's Kids part, which provides underprivileged children the opportunity to learn how to play hockey. They learn at the Oilers rink by NHL alumni. And then we also work with CASA, and CASA is from kindergarten to grade 12, a school for maybe children that can't be integrated into the normal school system attend there, and they also have inpatient center as well. So we do a lot of work with the Memorial Fund, which I think is so beautiful and bittersweet. Obviously, we weren't able to have kids of our own, so I always say like the kids that we help through Colby's Memorial Fund are like our kids together. So I love doing that. I also wrote a book, which was a wild journey.
Yeah.
I feel like reliving some of those moments, especially when you're in shock, was incredibly difficult. So I have the book, which was incredible just to see all the support that has came out on that. And then also...
Congrats on that. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. That was a hard one. And then obviously kind of do my own like podcast with like You're More back in Canada and all of that. So kind of continue to be his little world changer and keep that vow that I made to him.
Yeah, I love that.
Because I always say, if not with him, then for him. Yeah. And keeping his legacy alive is so important, because the last thing you want is your person to be forgotten. Right. And I think that's very important for people that judge other people's grief, whether they're moving on too fast or moving on too slow. In their eyes, even though they've never been in our shoes, is take a step back. If you were to pass away today, or your loved one would be to pass away, how would you feel if someone came to you and was like, never talk about them again? Yeah. Never create a legacy for them. Never, like, you wouldn't want that. Like, no one would want to be forgotten. So I think it's really important, to, like, continue on in any way that I can, whether it's a podcast or a book or sharing on socials or the memorial funds, to continue on his legacy, because he's part of my everyday life.
Right. And will continue to be. And I think that's exactly why this podcast came about, too. It's, like, just to share... our story, and just to have, people like us and just the crap we've had to go through, Yeah. But still continue to talk about all the good and all the, like, good that they brought into the world, too.
I couldn't agree. You're doing an amazing job at it.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast, coming down here.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me.
Yeah,
thank you for
sharing your
bringing me back to
story.
Baco.
Yeah, first time back in Baco. We're going to go to the Condors game tonight. We're actually going to go tour their locker room and kind of see some things. So, yeah, that'll be kind of fun to explore.
I'm excited. Well, thank you so much again.
Thanks again. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Shattered Silence. As always, don't forget to follow us on all of our socials on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. You can also watch full episodes on YouTube, or you can listen in on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.